It's time to head down to the track now for today's championship race. And I wonder, who's going to come out on top? We'll be seeing top speeds of around 210 miles an hour here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with around 2/3 of the lap taken at full throttle. High-speed chicanes spell potential danger, especially at the infamous Wall of Champions. And watch out for overtaking into the hairpin and the final chicane. With the Grand Prix nearly upon us, Anthony Davidson is by my side once again to offer his perspective. Why don't we kick off by discussing Max Verstappen? What do you make of their performance so far this season?
They've been avoiding mistakes and have had solid pace, so it's been a good season so far, but whether they can keep that up long-term remains to be seen.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Young superstar Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Bottas, Leclerc, Alexander Albon, and Norris, Ricciardo, Vettel, Kvyat, and Lance Stroll, Perez, Gasly, Esteban Ocon, and Raikkonen, Grosjean, Sainz, Kevin Magnussen, and Antonio Giovinazzi, Russell, and Nicholas Latifi. Which of these talented drivers will...
Here we go. Revving up to 5 red lights after a crazy qualifying. Max Verstappen started on pole. Here he goes off the line, and it's a good start from Max Verstappen. A great start from Max Verstappen as Bottas goes side by side with Lewis Hamilton, and down the inside he goes on Hamilton, which he pulls back around the outside of Lewis. Round the outside goes Valtteri Bottas. Hamilton gets the better exit into turn 4, I believe it. Back down the inside goes Lewis Hamilton. A great move from Lewis to get back up into second place and now go after Max Verstappen. As we look through the field, there is a Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel very low. They're behind some midfield cars after a pretty poor qualifying and what doesn't seem to be like some great race pace today. On the opening lap, no real chaos here on the opening lap at the moment, as Verstappen is being caught by Hamilton. You can see Lewis has some very strong pace at the moment. Max is going to do what he can to hold on to that lead as long as he can to take back the lead of the championship, as he is pretty close to the top. At the moment, it is Lewis who leads the championship from Bottas, and then it's Verstappen. At the start of this season, it seemed like Max was the quickest, and the Red Bull looked like a very quick car, but over the last few races it just hasn't been quite there for Max, other than Baku where he absolutely dominated. He's back to this race. We can see Hamilton is catching up to Verstappen. Not quite enough. He's not catching up that much, but he is certainly catching up in that very quick Mercedes. In fact, I have no idea how Max even put that car on pole. It was a stellar lap, but the Mercedes was clearly the quicker car, and Lewis is showing that right now. He's trying to get redemption after a pretty poor qualifying. Well, a relatively poor qualifying, a qualifying that he definitely could have put on pole, but second place is not horrible. Albon behind Leclerc there, and Vettel behind Ricciardo, and Sainz, I believe, is the McLaren up front. Esteban Ocon not quite where his teammate is on track. Down this straight, we've seen the telemetry, and we've seen that the Red Bull is not very quick on these straights. And now Max Verstappen goes a little bit wide. That's allowed Hamilton to catch right up to the back of him. Hamilton is very close to Max now. Max is really struggling on these tires. And you can see Hamilton going to the outside already with the DRS late on the brakes. Lewis Hamilton on the third lap of the race takes the lead of the race. Look at the incredible pace he's got. He's already overtaken Max, and Max will come back in with DRS. Even Bottas is having a look now. Does Max have an issue, or is it just tires? We're not too sure at the moment. As now Max goes down the straight here with the DRS. It's not quite enough. Hamilton's still in front, but Max can have DRS. Once again, if he can just get a strong exit out the final corner. Here he goes with the DRS. And he's pulled from Bottas quite nicely, but he's still way too far back from Hamilton. Actually, nearly goes into the back of him. You can see now he's going to try and stay with Lewis here on lap 4, and maybe he can make a move once again. Now look at how much Max has lost to Hamilton. Even Bottas is closer to him now. Now on board with Charles Leclerc, who's staying in front of Albon, but Albon does have DRS and is clearly the quicker of the two drivers, but Leclerc using that Ferrari power unit to stay in front of his friend Alex Albon.
What was the problem? The tires, they don't work.
And Max Verstappen complaining about his tires. You can see that he is really struggling. That Red Bull does not have the same tire wear as the Mercedes. Has some decent qualifying pace, but it looks like Max is struggling on his tires. And here we are on board with Carlos Sainz. On the back of Kimi Räikkönen, who's been doing a pretty good job in this race, I believe. Although I'm not sure if he is actually in the points. We can see Sainz is behind, but he can't quite make that overtake. That Ferrari power unit really helping both the Alpha and the Ferrari today. Now Kimi also has DRS off. I believe that's Esteban Ocon. As yes, Ricciardo is still holding it in front of Sebastian Vettel, which is very impressive from Danny Rick. Now back on board with the battle for the lead. We can see Hamilton is pulling away as Max was complaining about his tires. Although Max is closer than we expect. Looks like Hamilton might be back off them, but Max is closer. But of course that Mercedes is so strong. And look at how much he's already pulled away just in those couple of corners. And it looks like Max might have made a small mistake, and that's allowed Bottas to now catch up. Max will have TRS, which will help him defend from Bottas, but he's just way too far back to make any kind of inroads on Lewis Hamilton now. On this straight, it's just simply that Red Bull is not good enough in a straight line. Max's tires are just going off a little bit too much, and he's pulled into the pits. Neither one of the Mercedes pits, but Max has decided it's time to pit. And that does not surprise me, as he was struggling quite a lot on his tires, and looked like Bottas was going to get past him pretty soon. Now that means Charles Leclerc is up into third place in front of Albon and then Norris. That is not Sainz behind them. It's actually Lando Norris doing an incredible job this season. Or at least in this race, after some bad luck in the first few races. Now on the straight, which Mercedes is going to pit? It's actually going to be Valtteri Bottas. Perhaps Bottas is struggling in his tires more than Hamilton, because they've left Hamilton out, and that might mean Max, if he's quick enough, will be able to overtake Lewis, but we are not sure if he'll actually be able to overtake Lewis, as Lewis seems to be pretty comfortable with his tires at the moment, as most of the field pit now. And look at how much that McLaren's been held of Lando Norris. Very unfortunate. I believe he's lost the place to Sebastian Vettel there. This has unleashed Albon into the lead of the race. And now he's going to do what he can on this set. Sorry, no, Hamilton leads, but Albon is currently P2. Surprising Albon didn't come in on lap 7. Seems he's pretty comfortable on his tires, and this is also allowing Vettel to push. That was Leclerc earlier. That Norris lost the place to. But now we can see Verstappen on the fresh tires. He's chasing down the racing point. I believe that's Sergio Perez. Yes, it is. And now look at how close he is through the hairpin. Incredible speed he's got today, Max. As lap 9 now starts, and here he goes down this straight. Verstappen versus Perez. Perez got the straight line speed. I believe Perez is going to be pulling into the pits. Into the pits goes Sergio Perez. And Verstappen cuts the corner. Max cuts the corner very hard there because he was confused with Perez's braking point, I believe. And that means, well, not just a corner cut, but at least he has pulled quite a gap over Hamilton, who's now alongside Valtteri Bottas. Looks like Hamilton may have misjudged the tires. But no, he's held it in front of Bottas. And Verstappen, though, has taken the lead of the race, but he has been instructed, actually, to slow down to at least let Hamilton catch up. Not letting Hamilton overtake, but at least let Hamilton get within the DRS, and it looks like he might have been a bit too cautious of that, Max, because now Lewis is right up behind him. Simply because of Max's corner cut. As the FIA might have thought that was a little bit unfair. But he didn't gain too much time from the corner cut. Either way, here they go now, side by side. Who's going to be later on the brakes? It's going to be Verstappen, who defends brilliantly, and Bottas has a look at Hamilton. Now onto the long straight they go. Verstappen's going to be incredibly vulnerable here. Maybe Hamilton is going to come flying past him on the straight. Max has no DRS. He's not even using the overtake button. He's squeezing Hamilton to the inside. He goes to the outside. Verstappen late on the brakes. Hamilton's late on the brakes too. They make contact. Lewis nearly goes on the wall of champions. It's going to be side by side. Lewis has the DRS. Max is going to try and come back at him. Wants to start a lap 10, and Hamilton's taking the lead again. What a move by Lewis Hamilton. Max seemed to have it under braking, but then Lewis broke just as late, and it was able to hold it without going into the wall of champions. Brilliant driving from Lewis Hamilton to now take the lead of the race. And now here comes Valtteri Bottas alongside alongside Max Verstappen. Verstappen late on the brakes. It looked like Bottas actually did get past, but then Max just sent it down the inside. He is not letting P2 get away from him. Surely he wants to at least get P2 here. As yeah, you can see Lewis has already gone in the distance. Tires that are 2 laps fresher, as well as being in a car that is faster. And honestly, on this day, it seems like Hamilton has been the better driver with his incredible overtaking as well as his incredible speed. At the moment, he's just pulled such a gap on Verstappen literally 1 lap ago, and they were within a second, and now Hamilton's almost 2 seconds ahead. Lap 11 out of 18 now as we go down the midfield. This is Hamilton, who's already pulled a pretty big gap on Max, who seems to already be struggling for tire grip as he did push very hard on those 2 laps to overtake Lewis, and now he's not going to have too much battery left. He's not going to have as much fuel left, and his tires are not going to be as good, and now that's going to mean that Bottas will possibly be able to get past him as we're on board with Lewis Hamilton. Now, we are still on board with Hamilton. As we look back, we can see Bottas has overtaken Verstappen. We'd very much like to see a replay of that, and now we can see that Bottas going around the outside, Verstappen a little bit later on the brakes. They're under braking, but then Bottas clean around the outside. You can see just the outright grip of that Mercedes and the speed Bottas had around the outside there. Now Max tries coming back at him, but it's just not quite enough. And now Max is right behind him, but unfortunately, Bottas is the one with DRS, and that means that Max is not going to be able to at least pass him on this lap, and it looks like Bottas, with the fresher tires, the quicker car, might be able to just shoot off into the distance, just like Lewis did. You can see, yes, Bottas is pulling a nice gap over Verstappen. His tires aren't as fresh as Lewis, so he's not going to pull as fast as Lewis did, but it's only a 1 lap difference. And now Max has actually caught up with the DRS on the straight and under braking as well. And if we look back there, Max made a small mistake, and he's lost the back end, but he's caught right back up to Bottas under braking, and now with the DRS, he is actually a little bit too far back. I don't think he'll be able to make a move this lap, as that Honda's just not been really performing that well this season, as has the Red Bull. The massive amount of drag on it is just not helping their case, as Bottas continues to hold that lead, but now Verstappen actually is going to get the DRS again, and he is much closer there. He's very quick through the final chicane, quicker than anyone on track today, but he's not quite close enough. But he's at least closer than I think we expected. Despite the mistakes, he is still right out Bottas' gearbox by now. Hamilton had already pulled a nice gap on Verstappen. Verstappen touches the grass there on the outside as he cuts the corner just a little bit in his pursuit of Valtteri Bottas. He's through sector 1. It's just no competition. That Mercedes is so hooked up, and Bottas able to really get almost the most out of it. As we can see, Hamilton was really getting the most out of it as he continues to pull away from these two. Bottas is getting a lot of the car at the moment, and a lot out of his tires. That's Max in the hairpin and the final chicane. It seems he's got a lot of speed, although in the hairpin he does lose quite a lot of time on the exit, but under braking in the first stages of the corner, he is very quick. And now here he is on Valtteri Bottas, and he's not quite close enough to make an overtake. He actually has a look there. And now this is going to give him a strong exit onto the next lap. Onto lap 14, he's in the DRS, he's right behind Bottas. He's absolutely launching it down the inside. What a move by Max Verstappen. And he knew if he didn't make that move, he probably never would have gotten the chance again. And he re-overtakes Bottas. Bottas lost quite a lot of time there. What a move by Max to stay in touch with the Mercedes and then send it down the inside. Great driving by Verstappen. A bit of an aggressive move, but at that moment, that is exactly what he needed. He just sent it down the inside of turn 1. A brilliant, brilliant overtake. As now Bottas is trying to catch Max, and Bottas is pretty close as they come out of the DRS, but he's about the same distance Max was when he was trying to overtake Valtteri. And now we can see Bottas chasing down Verstappen. He's close, but through the final chicane we can see Max just incredibly fast, and look at how close he gets to the World Champions, getting the most out of the track. And here goes Valtteri Bottas. Verstappen goes defensive. Bottas sends it down the inside. Verstappen later on the brakes, round the outside. Max Verstappen holds the lead, but he goes a little bit wide. That's going to allow Bottas to come back. No, it's not. Incredible racing into turn 1. Verstappen incredible defending into turn 1. He didn't push Bottas off the track. He let Bottas have the inside, but he squeezed him and broke super late and held it around the outside of turn 1. And brilliant driving by Verstappen. But here comes Bottas with the DRS on this next straight. Looks like Valtteri is still clearly the quicker driver, and Max really just keeping up because of the toe and the DRS. But defending is going to be a massive challenge against these Mercedes at this track, as these top 3 are in a league of their own once again. They have just pulled such a gap over Charles Leclerc, but Either way, Hamilton is pulling even more time on these two as they are battling, and now Bottas doing everything he can to chase out Verstappen, and he is pretty close to Max now with the DRS. Verstappen taking a defensive line. Is Bottas going to mount a challenge? He does! Into the final chicane. Verstappen, a bit later on the brakes, he holds the place, but now surely Bottas is going to come flying past him. Max squeeze him to the outside, which is actually the inside for the real turn 1, which becomes the outside for turn 1. Under braking, Verstappen tries to outbrake Bottas. I can't even speak. Verstappen tries it back on the outside of turn 2. It doesn't quite work, and that means Bottas has re-overtaken Verstappen with 2 laps left in this race. And I don't know if Max can make this move. A brilliant move by Valtteri Bottas to send it around the outside. He hit the inside for the first, technically the first turn, but then the first braking zone, it was the outside, and Max just tried braking later on the inside, but it wasn't quite enough. As Bottas sent it around the outside, and of course he had the inside for turn 2, which Max couldn't quite send it around the outside of, being on the older tires. And it's just not really a corner you can send it around the outside of unless it is wet conditions, or unless you're in a significantly quicker car, which, as we've seen today, Max is certainly not in the quicker car. But now, he is pretty close to Bottas as he opens up the DRS on the back of Valtteri. But we see that Red Bull is just not very quick in a straight line, and here he is. Oh, he's looking to the inside there. Not quite sure why he did that, but now, anyways, it doesn't matter because he's nailed the braking point, he's nailed the corner. And now, here he is on the back of Valtteri Bottas. He looks to the outside, and he sends it down the inside. What a move by Max Verstappen! Bottas holds it on the inside of turn 2. Verstappen around the outside. What an overtake! Surely, that is one of the best overtakes of this season. He looked like he was going to go to the outside, and then he just sent it down the inside and launched it from a long way back. A great move by Max Verstappen. Now we can see Verstappen on the outside. Sorry, he's in front of Bottas, but he's taking a bit of more of an outside line through the hairpin, if you know what I mean. And here, Verstappen trying to get out of that slipstream. Being very smart. He's actually pulled a nice gap on Bottas, but that DRS is allowing Bottas to catch up. Leclerc is catching them up, but it's not quite enough. And Hamilton has started the final lap of the race. It looks like the win is inevitable for him, and it's frustrating for Max, who's really been struggling in this race for race pace. The Red Bull has no problems that we at least know about. It's just been the tire wear as well as the race pace and just Lewis's outright pace. That has meant that Max is currently P2, and he might probably lose the place to Bottas here in the final lap of the race. I wouldn't doubt if that Mercedes came flying past him, as it's just been so quick in a straight line, and it's just so quick everywhere this season. And here goes Bottas. Verstappen gets a bad exit. Max gets a really bad exit. He loses the back end on the worn tires. Of course, they are more worn than Bottas. Bottas locks up. Verstappen nearly goes into the back of him. Incredible racing here, but Bottas takes P2, and look at that. He's pulling away, and knowing the lack of pace Verstappen has had on this straight, I don't think he'll be able to re-overtake. As you can see, he's quicker under braking, but Bottas gets the better exit. Now they go down the straight. As Verstappen opens up DRS, surely he's going to be doing everything he can. Maximum battery, maximum fuel, maximum engine modes. Here he is, to the outside of Valtteri Bottas, very late on the brakes, around the outside of Valtteri Bottas, cuts the corner just a tiny bit, but it's not illegal. Max Verstappen at the final corner of the race takes P2. What an overtake. His last chance to overtake, and he left it to the end. And it's P2 from Verstappen. Great driving. Great race.
So, another fantastic victory for the Silver Arrows. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, I know it's a bit of a boring answer, but the truth is they simply had the best speed package on the day, and a driver who knows how to take advantage of that. It doesn't matter how much time you spend poring over the stats and planning strategies if you can't keep the pace, and our winner today showed they could do both.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. It's a great result for Lewis Hamilton, who moves further ahead at the top of the table. Now, let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for Driver of the Day?
I'll probably go for Pierre Gasly. The team did a good job with the strategy to put him in amongst the pack, but it's the driver's job to capitalise on those opportunities, and he did so with a lot of skill.
Let's move on to the Constructors. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.